So Final Fantasy X, one of my, I would say, more appreciated Final Fantasies. Um, some, I guess some of the people who worked on the localization for it um, came out and kind of talked about how doing the voice work or the voiceovers was a massive technical chore because apparently, and it gets a little bit technical here, apparently if you didn't match the time, like let's say you have a 5 second line of dialogue, and by the way, it's a lot of dialogue in that game. There's over 5 hours of recorded dialogue. So, yes, not a small amount of spoken dialogue in that game. Apparently, though, let's say you have a 5 second line in Japanese. If you don't do the line in English to match 5 seconds exactly, it would literally crash the game. Like if you didn't match the recordings to the same exact timestamp. Which is insane. That just seems completely like an unnecessary chore. And for today's day and age, we don't have to deal with that when it comes to localizing games. But, you know, Final Fantasy X, it was the first Final Fantasy to introduce voiceover work. You know, it just completely blows my mind that they were working with that limitation. Hey, Scatter SV, yes, we can see you in chat. We can see you at other times too. But yeah, Final Fantasy X. Good to have a lot of new people here in the chat. So, no, welcome guys. So one of the producers who was working on the dialogue for Final Fantasy X, Alexander O. Smith, he said, with a 10-frame line of dialogue, you can't even say yes, the word yes, in 10 frames. It's 30 frames a second, so 10 frames is a third of a second. And you can't say the English word yes. You can say the Japanese word hi in 12 frames, but you can't say yes in 12 frames because the S sound drags out. No matter what you do, you end up around 25 frames or something. So even at that level, it was challenging because I was having to make a lot of decisions that I think affected the final quality of the game for reasons that had nothing to do with the scene or the writing or the emotion of the scene. It was all about technical difficulty. So, yeah, this was this kind of to me, it kind of illuminates some of the awkward scenes in that game that didn't quite work in English. The infamous laughing scene comes to mind. In fact, in this article, which I found on Gamasutra, points to that scene specifically. It says, Smith says he himself was befuddled by the scene in production and asked writer Kazushige Nojima for insight on what he should tell the English voice actor. And Nojima-san had basically put it in there because of this laughing. Making yourself laugh, forced laughter, is a thing he had been doing, and he had been taking some acting classes. And it's something that you do in acting classes. So, as a writer, I've written some things before. It's fun sometimes to bring in personal experiences, but it has to actually fit what you're trying to do. And I don't hate that scene as much as a lot of people do. It is a very cringe-inducing scene in the entire game. It's the worst, but you don't just put it in there just because it's something that you're doing. You just don't. You can. I mean, you're writing something that people are going to experience for several years to come. So yeah, I have no idea why they did that. What are your thoughts on the laughing scene?
Well, as most of you, and by most of you I mean probably one, know, I haven't played very many Final Fantasy games. So I haven't actually played Final Fantasy X, but I have. I've, I'm pretty sure I've watched a walkthrough for it, and I have seen that scene, and I don't know about cringe worthy. It's very weird and awkward, just because it just lasts for so long, and it kind of just came out of nowhere, and it was like, so this is happening.
And yeah, there's definitely a moment where you're like, okay, they're done now, right? No, no, they're
Still
not
going.
done. They're still doing this.
Yeah. So it's mm, to hear that that's the reason why it's in there is dumb, but at the same time, uh, moments in games like that that just kind of like last throughout history of gaming, I love it.
Yeah, it is. It is one of those things that you would only get because Square and because the culture that the game comes from, and then it mixes in with what we do to it with localizing it, and next thing you know, you have this infamous scene that will always exist in video game history.
Yeah, and everyone knows what you mean by the laughing scene of Final Fantasy X. There's not a person you can go up to and be like, "Hey, remember that scene where they just laugh for no reason?" And be like, "No." I'm pretty sure everyone knows of that scene. Even in the article on Game Sutra, it's labeled as the infamous laughing.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
But yeah, good work overall. Just having to work around that limitation. Insane.
Yeah, I don't know how they managed to do that. Just because like you can say so much with just kanji. Because like some kanji like three symbols could be like a sentence.
Yeah. And I mean, there are some lines of dialogue that come out really quick and really fast. That's why. They didn't. You want the game to crash? No? Okay. Well, then you have to listen to some rushed dialogue.
And you get this really awkward English sounding Japanese game.